Where are you from? My name is Stacy Sturmer, and I've been asked this question a lot. It's a seemingly simple question. You can probably answer it without too much thought. But have you ever really thought about the place you came from? Have you ever investigated its history? By asking historical questions and seeking out answers from a historical source, I have discovered many new things about the town I grew up in, the place where I spent my childhood. I'd like to share with you what I learned through this process of researching my hometown, Wagner, Wisconsin, and in turn, what I learned about myself. The story of the town of Wagner begins long before it was named. Before Europeans even arrived, the Menominee Indian tribe used the land for hunting grounds for centuries. It later became part of New France, after Frenchman Jean Nicolet arrived in 1634. Then, a peace treaty between England and France resulted in the land becoming part of the British province of French-speaking Quebec. It finally became part of the United States in 1783 as part of the Northwest Territory. Wisconsin became a territory in 1836, at which time there was no record of white settlers in the future Wagner area. Wisconsin later became a state in 1848 and then started being divided into counties and towns. However, there were still no permanent settlers in the future Wagner Township. In 1859, Peshtigo Lumber Company started logging in the area and selling cutover land to immigrant farmers and hunters. Thus, the first European settlers arrived, mostly Swedes and Germans. The town of Wagner itself was founded in 1915 when it separated itself from the larger town of Porterfield due to poor infrastructure that made distant town affairs difficult. There were three names proposed for this new town: Maple, due to the abundance of sugar maple trees; Scandia, in honor of the high Swedish population; or Wagner, after an Austrian immigrant named Joseph Wagner, Wagner's first town chairman. The name Wagner was chosen, and this new rural community was born along the Menominee River in northeastern Wisconsin. In the past 100 years that Wagner has existed as a town, a lot of history has unfolded. When the town was first founded, it had only 5 roads and a few single-lane metal truss bridges with wooden planks. Farmers, cheesemakers, merchants, military men and their families were among the original residents of Wagner. While logging had been a major industry in Wagner prior to its separation from Porterfield, much of its white pine forest had been cut by the time Wagner came into being. This abundance of deforested lands drew in farmers with the lure of cheap land. Thus, Wagner became a largely agricultural community. These farms were the livelihood of families. Farming was their way of life and sustaining life for their children. Today, 28 barns still stand in the town of Wagner, but only a few of those are still part of a fully operational farm. While the farming aspect of Wagner has changed over the past century, one thing that hasn't changed is the popularity of hunting, trapping, and fishing. These activities have long provided sources of income, as well as food, for Wagner families, in addition to providing recreation and enjoyment. Education is something that has changed quite drastically throughout Wagner's history. Before Wagner became its own town, many people educated their children from their own homes. Then, in 1889, a one-room schoolhouse was built and named the Wagner School. It later became the first public building in the town of Wagner and was used as the town hall. In 1947, due to the constant increase in student numbers, another school was added, the Gall School, and later a third, the McAllister School. Before investigating the history of Wagner, I felt somewhat disconnected from it. I grew up in Wagner, but I didn't attend school there. I knew the community, but my family didn't have biological ties to it, having moved there before I was born. I appreciated the rural American culture of Wagner, but I didn't always understand it. I still don't. But after researching it more, I can see a glimpse into the whys of Wagner. Why are there so many old, neglected barns? Because farming used to be the livelihood of Wagner before commercial farming took over. Why do so many people hunt, fish, and trap animals? Because this used to be necessary to eat. Why do elders in my town love to tell stories of their lives in Wagner? Because these have been good lives, focused on family and hard work and dependence on the land. Through researching Wagner's history, I have been reminded of the beautiful simplicity of rural living. I have come to appreciate the many differing little stories that come together to create the history of the town. My own life has contributed to it and continues to do so. History encompasses many times and many places, but it also has a place within each of us. Wagner's history certainly has a place within me.